So summer travel is coming up, and I've been getting a lot of requests about where to go in Italy and what to do and what places to visit, what restaurants to eat at. I asked on Instagram what exactly you guys want to know so we can really make this a more tailored Italian experience. And so I'm going to answer some of your questions. My favorite times of year to visit Italy are usually in the spring and in the fall and Christmas time. If you need a destination for Christmas, the big cities are they're lit up. It's so magical. So those are the 3 times of year that I prefer to go to Italy. Best way to travel within Italy: train or car or driver. I love taking the train. I find that it's relaxing. I can see the countryside and I don't have to worry about getting lost. But a lot of people like to drive. A lot of my family, they like to drive. Everybody's got their thing. My favorite is trains. I think what I love about the train is that if you want to go from Florence to Rome or Milan to Rome, which is like top and bottom, it's only a couple hours. So 2 hours on the train, to me, it's lovely. Plus, I can get a little espresso. Sometimes you get a little cornetto or a little panino. And so I can eat, I can chill, I can nap, or I can look out and look at the countryside. So to me, the train is a glorious way to travel. I think the one that's the most condensed that people love is Florence. Florence is really easy to walk. It's not a big giant city. You could walk it pretty easily in a day. Rome and Milan, they're very spread out. It's very busy, but they also have great metros. So the metro is always a great way to see different areas within those big cities. But if you want a walkable city that's really easy, Florence is your best bet. Well, I'll tell you that my Aunt Raffi's favorite restaurant is Trattoria Camillo. She likes to go there on the regular when she's in Florence. Like, when I say on the regular, I mean for every meal. My favorite restaurant is Quattro Leone. They have a gorgonzola and pear ravioli that is just extraordinary, out of this world delicious. And it's in a cute little courtyard, and across the way from the restaurant is a gelateria that has unbelievable gelati. So it's like a really fun evening. And then if you stop and get wine on the way before or after dinner in the little wine windows, because they have 160 of these wine windows all over Florence.
And there's my glass of wine.
You just get one of those and you enjoy a glass of wine, and then you go to dinner and have some gelato. I mean, what's better than that, right? For a night in Florence. In Italy, we eat dinner very late. It is true. I think that's something that's really hard for a lot of Americans who go there, because we're so used to eating early here. It's not odd to eat dinner at 9:30, sometimes 10 o'clock. 7:38 is really early for a lot of Italians. So bedtime, 1 in the morning. And then you sleep in. And don't forget, Italians take a lunch break, a 2-hour break in the middle of the day where they go home and have lunch and they take a cat nap. There's a lot of resting involved, so that's why you can stay out late, for that exact reason. Different culture. We see our meals and our sleep, cycles totally different. We like to sleep. Breakfast is known as colazione. That's the word for breakfast in Italian. Breakfast is usually around like 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, and it usually consists of either a quick espresso at the espresso bar and maybe a cornetto, but it's usually on the go. We don't usually sit down to a breakfast. We just don't. It's at the bar, espresso, cornetto, boom, done. First time we sit down to a meal is lunch, pranzo. So my 2 favorite places to eat in Milan are Bice, B-I-C-E, and Giacomo. So those are my 2 faves. And both of them have a version of the risotto alla milanese, a yellow risotto because they use saffron. But I'm telling you, it is the best risotto you will ever have. So have risotto alla milanese in Milan, because nobody else, anywhere else in Italy, makes it quite like the Milanese do. It's fabulous. Bice probably has one of the best I've ever had. Giacomo has one, but it is more of a risotto in salto. So you take leftover risotto and you fry it up in a pan and it's kind of crispy. It's fabulous also. 2 different versions of the same dish. The other thing I would say that you could get at either restaurant is the cotolette di Milanese. It's a veal pounded super thin and pan fried, and it is, again, out of this world, and usually it's giant. So if you're into taking Instagram pictures or TikToks, you will love that. And guys, I'm gonna be in Milan, which I am super excited. We're gonna be doing some really cool things and meeting up with some of my friends, and I think it's gonna be a really fabulous trip. So if you wanna follow along, check out my full travel experience on giadzy.com. I'm super excited. I'll see you there. Well, one of my favorite small towns in Italy that I discovered like 3 years ago or something, maybe 4 years ago, is down in Puglia. I love Puglia. And it has become more popular, but not as popular as the north. And I feel like it needs a little more love. So Lecce, L-E-C-C-E, is one of my favorite towns. It's got so much history, and it has art galleries, and it's just totally cool and hip and unbelievable, hotels that are more like pensiones, where people used to live. They were people's homes, and so beautiful gardens, and it's just so peaceful and serene, and not far from the water. And Puglia has some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. So if you're ever in the south, give Puglia a shot. If you're going to the Amalfi Coast for 5 days, I think home base should probably be somewhere in Positano. That would be my choice anyway, because Positano is very walkable, and walk to dinner in many different areas, and then you can take a car, you can rent a 500 if you want, and you can take the highway all the way up the Amalfi Coast. There's so many different towns. There's Ravello up in the mountains where you can drink wine. I mean, there's beach towns, there's everything. You can go down to Sorrento. There's so many places to visit all along that beach, but Positano I feel like sort of in the epicenter. So you can go up and then you can go down, and then you can visit all of those areas. You could also eventually take the ferry over to Capri for a few hours. But I think Positano is a great home base. When it comes to wineries, it kind of depends on what kind of experience you're looking for, and are you a wine connoisseur? Because if you're a high-end wine connoisseur, you're gonna wanna stay up in the north. That's some of the best red wine in the world is up north in the Tuscany region. But if you're looking for more table wine and family-run vineyards, then I would go south. Puglia has some really great wines. Sicily is known for some really fabulous white wines. So they're not giant vineyards, but they are really like homegrown, and they do produce some fantastic wines. They're just a lot lighter. There's a lot of like lemon and citrus in the wine and in the grapes because of where they're located, especially on the Amalfi Coast. They're crisp, but they're light that you would eat with fish. And in the north, I find that a lot more people who are wine collectors, wine connoisseurs, want real depth. They go up north for the Tuscan wines, the big, bold ones.
Do you think you can go wrong with a wine in Italy?
I honestly don't think you can go wrong with a wine in Italy. I really don't. And I think table wines, they're delicious and they're a great value. In my opinion, when you have young children, and this is what I did when Jade was young, is I stuck to smaller towns. Start with Florence. Florence is a very walkable city. You can bring a stroller, it's easy to get around, and you can pretty much go everywhere, right? If you want to go in Tuscany, I love Montalcino. I think it's adorable. You can get a little apartment in town and you can walk everywhere and you can eat everything, and it's easy to access and get around. Once you go down south, I really like Capri, islands like Capri, Ischia, Procida. They're all very contained islands, so I feel like you stay in a hotel or you rent an Airbnb, and I mean, most kids, pool and beach, and they have both. They have beach clubs everywhere. You can dip in the ocean, you can play water games. It's much easier to get around, and you kind of get a feeling for the Italian culture, and that's really more of what it's about, because I think when you try to drag kids around in Rome especially, it's overwhelming. It's just there's so much coming at you. So you have to like plan it where if you have young children, stay outside the city or go to an island. And that way everything's contained. As your kids get older and they can handle more coming at them, then you start to do the historical parts of Italy. Rome, Milan, all of those kind of areas. Naples also has unbelievable history. But again, there's a lot going on. So for little kids, that's overwhelming. Stick to the smaller towns in the outskirts or coastal towns. Well, I love ceramics, all different ceramics from all over different parts of Italy. Ceramics in Italy are very regional, so there are different patterns and different thicknesses and different shapes depending on where you go in Italy. So ceramics would be number one. In Rome, There's an older man who has a marble shop, and he does these small little marble plaques that have Italian sayings on them. And I love those. It's on Via Margutta. It's fabulous. So anytime I go to Rome, I get those. The other thing I look for is spices. I like little spice mixes. Like they have spice mixes to make matriciana, to make different kinds of risottos, like a porcini spice mix. So I tend to go for those too. When it comes to the Italian summer, and it can be real hot, I think the trick is always cotton and linen. Those things really breathe really well. A lot of women wear, colorful, baggy cotton and linen dresses. Not a lot of form-fitting things because you want your body to breathe. And they wear a lot of accessories, jewelry, to kind of dress it up a little bit. Funny enough, in my family, not me per se, but many of my female relatives, no bra. They just go around au natural. So when I was a kid and we would go to the beach in Italy, if we got wet and we were in a bikini, you would change for lunch, eat lunch in dry clothes, and then you'd change back into your bathing suit after lunch. So there's a belief in Italy that, you don't eat with wet clothes. It's bad for digestion. Just like you don't go into the water for at least 2 hours after eating a meal. They're all myths, but we're very superstitious people. I wouldn't avoid any touristy spots. I would just be more strategic as to what time of day I was going. So for instance, you wanna visit the Vatican, I would visit either really early in the morning or really late at night. Because the thing is that in the middle of the day, it is just so crowded. You won't get anywhere. You'll just get frustrated. So get up early as the sun is rising or much later in the evening, maybe even after dinner, take a stroll. There'll be a lot less people around. It'll be much more enjoyable. Same with the Colosseum. One of my favorite touristy spots is the Trevi Fountains. But I say you go under the Trevi Fountain to really get a feel for what life was like back centuries ago. And it's really cool. So the same thing that you do at the Trevi Fountain and make a wish, I'm gonna do it down here. A lot of people asked about gluten-free pasta, gluten-free in general in Italy. There are restaurants that make gluten-free pasta. I would say that unless you have celiac disease or some really intense adverse reaction to gluten, that you'll actually be okay in Italy. First of all, portions are much smaller than they are here. That's number one. Number two, our ingredients, our flour, isn't so refined. It's just easier to digest. And so I don't think you're gonna have the same issues that you have in the States with gluten. It's just cleaner. And I will say this too, you will walk a lot in Italy. And so people don't gain weight like they do here when they eat a lot of carbs. It's sort of like the body's processing it differently when you're there than when you're here. And also, you guys, it's a state of mind. You're in the most beautiful, romantic, just warm place in the world. And I think that you feel that love. And so your brain kind of computes the food you're eating at a different level. And you're relaxed. And there's something to be said about eating a smaller portion of pasta or bread when you're in this beautiful, serene, peaceful place. When it comes to pasta in Italy, in my book, there's no such thing as too much pasta. I love it. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Actually, I don't eat it for breakfast, but lunch and dinner I do. I just love it. Even if I'm sharing it. A lot of times I order a pasta or two for the table, and then we all share that. And then we all get our mains, which is a meat or a fish or a vegetable, right? So it's a lot about sharing so you don't end up eating as much. It's just a cultural way of eating, very family style. So when you're traveling in Italy, there's a few words and phrases that come in really handy. The first one I would think of is avete, which means do you have? So if you're asking for something specifically, you say, avete parmigiano reggiano? Do you have parmigiano reggiano? So that's a really good word to know. Unlike here in the US, when you're in an Italian restaurant, you don't automatically get a glass of water. You have to ask for it. So usually what we say is una bottiglia, a bottle, una bottiglia di acqua frizzante or naturale. So do you want sparkling water or natural? That's a really important phrase because otherwise you don't get any water. And then il conto, the check please. So il conto, por favore, il conto, and chin chin. Cheers. Cheers, you guys. Hopefully that was helpful. If you want more key phrases for your Italian adventures, then log on to Giadzy. Our guides have plenty of them. All right, buon viaggio.